Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about the 49ers getting blown out in Green Bay, 38-10. We're going to be going over key stats from the game, reasons for the loss, which are many, even though this is a game where the Niners had no shot from the jump. We're going to be talking about Brandon Allen's performance, Nick Sorensen, and the defense. There's rumblings or suggestions about Daniel Jones, former Giants quarterback, being signed by the 49ers. We're going to be discussing KNBR, a West Coast radio station, their thoughts about the Niners if they don't miss the playoffs. A lot of doom and gloom stuff, a lot of whiny 49er fans, a lot of irrational, illogical bitches that are out there in the social media verse that are just taking this stuff way too hard or too emotionally or too ridiculously. But then we're going to talk about moving forward when the dust settles for the last 6 games of this NFL season. So let's just jump right into it. So I gave my prediction, Packers 23, Niners 20. I was way off on this. This was before Brock was out. Not like that would have mattered. Well, before Brock, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, and Charvarius Ward were declared out of the game or out for the game. I thought some combination of those players would play, but 0 for 4. When you are missing Trent, Nick Bosa, and Charvarius Ward, who's been out for a couple of games, but as a third solid all-pro, Pro Bowl level cornerback that could have helped tighten up the defense a bit, that would have been a tough road to hoe for Brock. When you're losing your quarterback, starting quarterback on top of that, you essentially have no chance. But you also have no chance if you gain only 241 yards on offense. Niners started out extremely slow. Brandon Allen looked in the first quarter over his head, hasn't played meaningful football in a couple years. Had a splint, a broken finger on his left hand. We're going to get into that. I think that was a non-factor. Could not establish the running game whatsoever and could not stop the Packers in the first half. Now, you also can't lose if you only gain 11 first downs and you give up 22. Packers did what they wanted to in the first half of the game, and that's essentially, not to say that that's when the game was over or decided, but it was a tone-setting half for the Packers. And then the Niners do what the Niners do in the fourth quarter and collapse, and the Packers put the game out of reach. You can't win a game when you lose the time of possession battle by 13 and a half minutes. And that was really courtesy of the Packers running game spearheaded by Josh Jacobs, who went for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you absolutely cannot win a game when you lose the turnover battle 3-0, 2 by Brandon Allen, a fumble, a pick, which hit Debo in the hands and naturally goes right into a safety's hands, and they return it back to the Niners' 25-yard line, and Christian McCaffrey late with a fumble. But that game was a 21-point lead at the time by the Packers. Would not have mattered. All those things together, if you have Brock and Trent and Bosa and Ward, and those 4 or 5 things happened, only 241 yards. You get doubled up in first downs. Over 13 minutes, you lose in time possession, and you give up 3 turnovers and don't get any. You're not going to win any game. And it makes the 38-10 final score reflective of the effort that the Niners put forth. Or more correct, I guess, let's give some, obviously, credit to the Packers, the effort that the Packers put forth, especially in the first half, where they just gashed the Niners. They ran at will. The Niners had no answer for what Green Bay was doing. 17-7 at the half. And listen, I know I say, most objective 49ers podcast, and try to be, a lot of anybody, content creator, actual media journalist, talking heads on TV, former NFL players, everyone's giving their opinion, but they're hopefully giving it on some basis of fact. I think there are folks on the radio. I live in the Northeast, so I get the Giants and Jets on radio, on TV, unfortunately, as well. But I do have NFL Sunday Ticket, which doesn't seem like it's a great investment this year, not because of the Niners record, but because they're on national television, or at least in the Northeast, quite a bit. The past couple weeks, this upcoming week against Buffalo is going to be on Sunday Night Football. They're going to have the Lions, in December on Monday Night Football. It doesn't matter. I still use it. I enjoy it. I would never not have it, just being that big of a fan. And again, this is the only team I follow, but I'm not a homer. And I don't think I'm stupid. Am I right all the time? Absolutely not. But I try to look at things from an objective, informed place, not going off on any sort of emotional rants or anything that I know chances are not going to happen. The whole getting rid of Brock thing, getting rid of Kyle thing, like the toxicity of 49er fans on social media spewing absolute nonsense. I found my response to folks today. I think I was a little bit more active on social media, just responding to nonsense, responding to people that are just whiny posters that are always doom and gloom. And this isn't the Grant Cohn or the Cohn clique. I've muted Grant Cohn. I just don't want to hear his nonsense or negativity. And again, I'm not an optimistic person. If you've been listening to the podcast, I'm more of a half glass empty type of person, but I can look at things relatively objectively. I mean, I do my research before every podcast, try to give pros and cons of some stuff. There are, players or coaches like Nick Sorensen that I do jump on, but I feel like it's for good reason. But I don't consider myself a homer. Pick the Niners to lose this game. Was hoping before hearing that Brock, Trent, Bosa, and Ward were out, that picking the Niners on the road or against the Niners on the road, like it did in Seattle a few weeks ago, would have some sort of positive, superstitious juju that would help the Niners out. That obviously wasn't the case. I bet on Green Bay today. I put money on the Packers today. I'm not a homer and I'm not stupid. I just wish I put money on them before Brock was declared out, because I would have gotten better odds and a better payout. And like I said before, I didn't think they were going to win this game with all four of those players playing, which I assume they were when I made my prediction end of last week. The way they lost, though, was an ugly, sloppy loss. I don't care how much they lost by. I mean, I guess I do with the whole betting, because the Packers were favored by 6.5 points. But it was sloppy. It was disjointed. There wasn't a rhythm outside of the 49ers' one touchdown drive. They couldn't get the ground game going. Brandon Allen, I mean, how much you, and I'll save that. I'll save any Brandon Allen stuff for a couple, we'll call them segments. We'll make it sound official. A couple segments from now. But it was sloppy. Even the footing was sloppy. The weather was a non-factor. I know people were sending images, social media images, a few days ago about, Green Bay, and there was, snow on the seats and on the field. This is what the Niners have to look forward to. Unless you're sending it an hour before the game. No, that's not what the Niners and Packers had to look forward to, because I checked the weather when I recorded the last podcast on Thursday or Friday, and there was no precipitation in the forecast. The weather was not a factor. For whatever reason, the field was more of a factor for some of the Niners. And you saw the shot of people coming in with like different cleats. Brandon Allen slipped a couple times, which may have contributed to his fumble. But we went over, the top 4 or 5, key stat reasons why they lost. But let's talk a little bit more about the running game or lack thereof. You're not going to win if your running output is 16 for 44 on the day. McCaffrey 11 for 31. Mason 1 carry for 13, 14 yards when it mattered. And then he had 2 other carries where he lost yardage. One was a fumble that was recovered by an offensive lineman. Shanahan, again, not going away from McCaffrey. And I'm at the point, I think, and some other fans are too, where even if it tips the hand of Mason being in and making it seem like, it's probably going to be a handoff, just do it. Mason right now is the better runner than McCaffrey. He is the better running back than McCaffrey. He is the fresher running back than McCaffrey. I know McCaffrey had, 2+ months off. I still question how much he is in football shape for the heavy load that he's carried the last couple weeks. And this week was less of a load because the Niners just couldn't sustain any drives really throughout the game. So only 11 carries and a couple of receptions. So what, maybe 15, 16 touches at most? Okay. But the running game, I mean, we're all watching the game, right? The running game operated better before McCaffrey came back. And that doesn't mean you sit him. That doesn't mean you don't run him, but it means you put another running back in to give them a different look. Look at the fucking Packers today. I don't even know who the hell their backup running back was. Number 30. I know it's not A.J. Dillon because he's on IR, but the backup running back got carries when Josh Jacobs was gashing the Niners in the first half. Jacobs went out in the second half. He was questionable. I forget what the injury was, but then came back in and was still running the ball. But if the Packers could find a reason to get a backup running back involved, and essentially every other goddamn team in the NFL, and some will go, 3 running backs deep. I know that's a crazy thought. 3 running backs touching the ball in one game? Al, is that possible? It is. It is. Just not for this team. And I'm tired of, well, McCaffrey is just so elite, you can't afford to take him out. Yes, you can, because it'll help keep him elite, or at least fresh, into the third and fourth quarter. Now, the running game, let's be fair too, though. The output, or the 16 rushing attempts, were the fact that they got down big quickly, right? They're down 17-0. 17-7, and starting the second half might have changed the equation. And we're going to get to, special teams and penalty stuff in a minute. It could have looked a little bit differently if things had played out a little bit differently to start the second half. And I think where I'm leaning towards with that, but let's just not get there just yet. Packers got up big. Packers stayed up big in the second half. The running game was a non-factor. Jordan Mason had the best run of the day, much like he did last week. Saw 2 carries in the first quarter. Did not see any the rest of the game, or maybe had 1 the rest of the game. Again, 3 carries for Mason. It's not going to do it when you can have I don't even know if you want to call it thunder and lightning, because I think right now Mason is thunder and lightning. He looks quicker. He looks more explosive. He looks more decisive. And that does not mean, I just want to say it so there's no misunderstanding, that does not mean that McCaffrey doesn't play. But I don't think there's an issue with an early down run or early down runs going to Mason, first or second down, and then later down runs, I guess would be second or third down, or passing situations going to McCaffrey. I don't think that's an issue. If Mason is your concern in terms of pass blocking, then put him in when you know you're going to run it. And if he's your concern about receiving out of the backfield, then don't throw to them. Keep him in again if you're going to be throwing on first or second down. I don't think there was, and I said it a month or more ago when McCaffrey was nearing his return, start him off as a third down back. If you want to sprinkle, a light sprinkling, not the heavy dousing that Shanahan has given us, but a light sprinkling of McCaffrey on early downs, easing him back into the game plan, I would have been more okay with that, especially since you would have had the hotter hand or hotter legs in terms of Mason. Now, I don't know if Mason's shoulder threw that off, or I don't think he was probably even on the table, but Mason's shoulder might have been a consideration when McCaffrey started a couple of weeks ago. But I'm assuming he's healed, or more healed now than he was, Mason, we're talking about, than he was 3 weeks ago, because Christ, he hasn't played. I guess he's played some special teams, but it's taking a fraction of the snaps or hits that he was taking as a running back. So I'm sure the shoulder is in much better place. But if you can't run the ball, you need to stop the run. And they couldn't do that in this first half for sure. 42 for 169. That's basically 4 yards a carry. Green Bay did what they wanted to on the ground against San Francisco. Went well over their average of about 140 yards a game. The Niners were 100 yards under their average. You could have just stopped there. Even if they had gained more yards, had more first downs, were closer in the time of possession battle, and maybe only had 1 turnover or didn't turn the ball over, just the rushing stats alone, the disparity there would have been a Green Bay victory. Defensively, not catching 2 interceptions. I'm not going to say dropping 2 interceptions because I don't really see them as drops. They didn't catch them. And here's the distinction. Renardo Green's getting his hands on the ball on a throw that went off, I guess, Dobbs' hands or one of the Green Bay receivers on an in-cut. Renardo Green is chasing him, sees the ball ricochet off his hands, and everything looks doable in slow motion. But let's remember, real time, Green is more focused on the receiver. Ball's coming off the receiver's hands. He's reaching out for it while his momentum is taking him away from the ball. Not an easy catch at all. But in a game like this, that's a play that needs to be made to keep you in the game. Same with Jair Brown. Had 2 hands on the ball, went up for it, gets knocked away by, I think it might have been, was it Kraft behind him as a tight end or one of the receivers, went up behind him, winds up bringing the hand down to knocking it down and away from Jair Brown. So it's not a drop, guys. Just didn't catch it. I can rectify those things in my mind. But again, that's another play that needs to be made to keep yourself in a game where so many other things were going against you. And Jordan Love, threw 2 touchdowns, barely over 50%. How impressed do we want to be with him? He's still leading the league in interceptions, and he didn't play 2 games due to injury. And he put the ball in harm's way twice, where, I mean, let's say maybe one of them should have been intercepted, just being, having stronger hands or getting a little bit luckier on it. Not too impressed with Jordan Love. CJ Stroud, just in that same stratosphere. They lost to the Titans. Didn't look good. Thought he was a second coming. Thought Jordan Love was a second coming. Jordan Love, and we're going to get to the whole Brock discussion. Remember, Jordan Love's getting $55 million a year based on 9 good games last season. What has he really done this year? He's worth the money, though? And media pundits and other people say he is, but Brock's not? Come on, guys. Come on. You're not going to win a game going 3 for 10 on 3rd down and 0 for 2 on 4th down. So we're going 3 for 12, 25% on money downs. And those 3 were 3 completions by Brandon Allen. I think you might have seen the stat. He was at 1 point 3 for 3 on 3rd downs passing. That went away pretty quickly. You are not going to win a game if you miss 15 tackles in the first half and 20 in total for the game. That has been an issue for the 49ers for most of the season. We can't honestly say every single game, but the majority of the games we can say. And hearing Nick Sorensen talk in the post-game presser, and he's the only person I listened to, and it was just a snippet that I saw online. Well, some of these missed tackles are because we're so aggressive and we play so violently, and Fred's shooting the hole so quickly and so hard that someone takes a step and they're by Fred, or maybe Fred can grab him and slow him down. And then we have 2 other guys rallying to the ball. It was like a 35 second clip. I understood the first 10, 15 seconds. The last 15 to 20 sounded like he was rambling. Maybe, isn't there something called like breaking down, playing under control? Maybe you don't play that. Are they even playing violently? Said it a couple podcasts ago, maybe last podcast. It's a violent sport just by the fact that these are huge, strong, powerful, fast people hitting each other. So by nature of playing football, it's violent. But do we see them as a violent defense? Do we think of them as a violent defense? I'm not going to say they're soft, but they're not. I don't think they're violent. They're not aggressive. They're not imposing. Maybe the only one that fits the imposing bill is Malik Mustafa. And even he got run over by Patrick Mahomes. So this is not an all gas, no brakes. And if they're still touting that philosophy internally in some way, shape, or form, it's okay to pump the brakes. It's okay to pump the brakes in life sometimes. It's okay to pump the brakes in sports. How many times on kickoffs do we see people running down the field, kick return or punt return? Well, maybe more punt returns now because kick returns are a little bit more controlled. Like their hair's on fire, but they're running too fast, and the punt returner just makes one step one way, cuts the other, and leaves the gunner in the dust. It's okay to slow down and play under control. Coaching my son's rec basketball league this year, and there's kids of obviously varying basketball knowledge and skill and talent. So we're starting from the ground up, dribbling the length of the quarter, up and back, right hand up, right hand back, left hand up, left hand back. We'll put some cones down. We'll do, crossing over, but slow. Get it under control. Keep the ball by your hip, by your butt, under control. And what I've told the kids, we only had 2 practices, but it seems to sink in with them, is don't go fast. It doesn't matter how fast you go. If you don't have the ball with you, if you can't control the ball, then fast doesn't matter. You can only go as fast as you can keep the ball under control. And the Niners at this point, and I know this is maybe like an elementary thing to say or a stupid thing, whatever, but they should only be playing as fast and as violently as being under control allows them to. Because the miss, as big and strong as Josh Jacobs is and other running backs, the missed tackles thing, it's the way they're being coached, right? You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. Their coaching philosophy or style in this regard is not helping a team that has problems missing tackles. Would this have changed the outcome of the game if they missed 10 tackles instead of 20, 5 tackles instead of 20? No. But it certainly didn't help in terms of keeping the 49ers defense behind the sticks, chasing plays, getting second and third and manageable for Green Bay. And of course, you're not going to win, or you can't possibly win, when you're committing 9 penalties for 77 yards. And it's not just the penalties and the yardage. It's when the penalties happen, a pass interference in the end zone on Renardo Green, which was, I don't want to say ticky-tack, but if they didn't throw the flag on that, I don't think I would have, maybe a lot of people would have batted an eye, or I'm sure maybe a lot of more Packer fans would have batted an eye, but it was some hand fighting. Green did get his head around. It wasn't like one of those plays where, the receiver's coming back to the ball and the corner just runs through him like this without even looking. Bad luck, bad timing, bad space on the field, giving him a first and goal. And I think that's what put the game out of reach. It extended it to a 31-10 lead, I think, at that time. Holdings on offense, you wind up getting a 2nd and 2, there's a false start, or you get to a 2nd and 5, there's a holding penalty. Special teams, obviously not immune. At least, Nick, I keep saying Nick Moody. Jake Moody at least hit his field goal and his extra point. Punt coverage units, not bad. Return units, bad. 17-7 coming out of the half, and I maybe alluded to this earlier. Deebo Samuel on a kick return takes it back 87 yards inside the 20. Niners are in business, but of course, there's a hold on Eric Saubert, who had his hands, at least one hand inside. Maybe the other hand was outside, but based on the replays that I saw, it looked like both hands could have been inside, but a good eyes on the ref to see that he was grabbing inside and more or less wrestled his guy to the ground. Now, at some point, you got to let go and maybe just push the guy down, instead of like taking him to the ground, because it looks like you're stuck to him. And you heard, the announcers say it, that it's not just the penalty yards, the actual, that they mark off, but it's the yards that could have been. And that was an 87-yard swing. No, not maybe 87 yards, but that was at least a 70-yard swing in terms of where Deebo ended up to where the Niners started the drive. And they would have lost the game. But starting that drive in the second half, 17-7, assuming there's no turnover, they make it a 17-14 game. They make it a 17-10 game, get it within one score. Maybe things unfold a bit differently. Right? Sorensen's defense was playing pretty well in the second half, at least early in the second half, in the third quarter. I don't think with Brandon Allen at the controls and who they were missing, obviously still missing Ayuk. Obviously, if they have Allen in there, that means there's no Brock Purdy. There's no Trent Williams. Although, Jalen Moore, right? He wasn't called for a penalty, at least not that I remember. Jalen Moore played a pretty clean game. Having Trent Williams in there, would that maybe have popped maybe a run or two for McCaffrey? Definitely not Mason, because he didn't get the ball much. But for McCaffrey, running to the left, or if Williams is countering to the right, perhaps. But Jalen Moore was not a liability. Charvarius Ward, I think in the passing game, would have helped. Nick Bosa, for sure, pass rush would have helped. Both teams had 2 sacks on the day, but the front four, again, not getting home and no creativity by Sorensen. But let's stop with the Sorensen and defense discussion. Let's just stay on offense for now. Brandon Allen. All right. Wasn't terrible, but was responsible for 2 turnovers, right? The ball to Debo was high. Debo's got it. Again, this is a game where even if fully healthy, excuse me, I've said this on previous podcasts and shows, even when fully healthy, the margin for error for this team is so slim. 0-3 in the turnover battle, getting waxed in time of possession, not being able to run the ball, getting gashed in the running game, all these things in some are insurmountable. But even if everything goes right for this team, the margin of error is so slim that Debo's got to make that catch, or Brandon Allen's got to put that ball a little bit lower. So either Debo catches it, or maybe if he drops it, it goes right to the ground. But the football gods, the Niners just don't get a break. It goes off of Debo's hands and right into the hands of a safety, who then takes it back inside the Niners' 30-yard line, where they cash in for another touchdown. Fumble, one of the couple times where Brandon Allen slips dropping back, tries to gain his footing, step up in the pocket, gets sacked. So fumble, strip sack, fumble, Green Bay recovers, another touchdown. Now, people are making a big deal about the broken finger on his left hand. If he was a left-handed quarterback, guys, it's an issue. I don't think the finger was as much of an issue as his footing was. We didn't see him drop a pass, drop a snap in shotgun because maybe the splint got in the way. The fumble was not caused by the splint in the left hand. That ball was in his right hand. It was cocked. It was back. He was trying to throw, and his arm got hit, and the ball came out. The pick to Debo, the left hand, the splint had nothing to do with that either. So it did not impact how Brandon Allen played, but I'm still surprised that Brandon Allen won the backup role and was the starting quarterback today, and that he won the job coming out of training camp. I think giving Dobbs, was like a fully guaranteed $2.5 million deal. I thought tipped the hand to who Shanahan wanted, but it comes down to comfort level. I don't think Brandon Allen outplayed Josh Dobbs in the preseason, from what I remember. If he did, it was marginal. If he did, and I'm not even sure if he did, but Dobbs has played more football recently, has played a lot of meaningful football the last 2 seasons. I think that should, and the fact that he's mobile, and the Niners offensive line pass protecting was relatively solid today. But as we've seen all year, they've had trouble picking up blitzes, and you would figure that someone with a little bit more mobility, a little bit more playmaking ability could maybe give that offense a spark, right? When your starting quarterback in a game is not playing well and he gets pulled and the backup comes in, you always hear coaches say, we wanted to give the offense a spark, like a jump start, a little bit of juice. I think Dobbs provides juice. Brandon Allen doesn't. He provides Kyle with a player that has been in his system for a year longer, and maybe there's more of a comfort level with. And I think maybe the mentality is Brandon Allen won't lose you a game, but Josh Dobbs might, if the game is close. And this game wasn't close. It didn't really matter because the Niners got beaten basically every which way you can get beaten. Josh Dobbs might lose you a game, but I think he has bigger potential and ability to win you a game than Brandon Allen does. And if Josh Dobbs started this game, don't misunderstand, they still would have lost. Who knows? Josh Dobbs might have played and might have thrown 3 or 4 interceptions. Who knows, right? But I just feel like that juice, that spark that this offense needs, because McCaffrey hasn't provided it since he's been back, right? We can't say McCaffrey was the reason why they won the last 2 games. And I can't really say McCaffrey was the reason why the running game wasn't as dynamic as it was in the past. Although I do still think Jordan Mason is just a better choice for running the ball, either between the tackles or outside zone. McCaffrey's just not seeing it. His legs are just not there yet. and he's valuable in pass protection and pass reception. I get it. But I think if we're talking about juice and jumpstart, I think Mason can jumpstart the running game, help jumpstart. It's not all him. And I think Dobbs, if Brock can't go next week at Buffalo on Sunday night, and that game could be just as ugly as this game, I think he could help jumpstart the offense by giving another dimension with his legs, like Brock does. Josh Dobbs and Brock Purdy, I don't think are really similar quarterbacks in any way, really, other than they'll pick stuff up on the ground. And I think you need every aspect of offense you can get from every single one of your players to win next week. If Brock is out, but Bosa, Williams, and Ward play, if your quarterback's out going up against Josh Allen, the Bills in Buffalo, really no chance. And I think it opened up right now, the Bills is like a 6-point favorite, which right now to me feels low. If those 4 players are out or if just Brock is out, that feels low. And you probably know where I'm going to be putting my money next week. And one last thing, saw a tweet or something post from Adam Schefter saying that the Niners like Allen's big arm to open things up downfield. Not that they like it more than Brock. Let's not misunderstand, but just that Allen's got a big arm to push the ball downfield. Yeah. How did that work today? Did we see it at all? Was there any pass downfield more than 15 or 20 yards? No. So if one of Brandon Allen's virtues is his arm and throwing the ball downfield, it's not going to happen. And how much is Kyle going to trust Brandon Allen throwing the ball downfield in general? Oh, there was the one. I'm sorry. He did take a shot to Chris Conley, right? Conley was running a post and he threw the ball as if it was just a straight up bomb behind Conley or to the left of Conley, depending on how you're looking at it. You guys know the pass I'm talking about. All right. Sorensen. Again, not terrible, but not creative. There was actually 3 blitzes in the first half. I thought I was dreaming. I was pinching myself. I mean, they were losing, but I was pinching my, did someone kidnap Nick Sorensen? Is there an invasion of the body snatchers thing going on? There was actually 3 blitzes in the first half. Unbelievable. None in the second half. Very believable. Wasn't terrible. Held Jordan Love was under 50% for the majority of the game. Granted, receivers didn't help him out. Granted, he did put the ball in harm's way twice to Renardo Green and Jair Brown. And the defense played well in the third quarter. And then, as if on cue, once, quadruple zeros hit the clock at the end of the third, the Niners defense and Sorensen turned into a pumpkin again in the fourth quarter and lit up 14 points. Couldn't slow the rundown in the first half. We talked about that. His run blitzes, there was no 5-man. And I keep saying 5-man line as if that's the cure-all for everything. And I know it's not. But I just know, and I keep saying it, it gives Kyle problems. Why would it not give other teams problems? And yes, you put 5 on the line, you're sacrificing 1 on the back end. But I'm okay at this point just trying something different. It's got to have some sort of a strategic purpose, of course. But when you're getting gashed, you got to do something to not get gashed. And the Niners did slow Green Bay down somewhat in the second half running the ball. Green Bay had more rushing yards in the first half than the second half, not by a ton, but they did. But by that time, the damage was done. Sorensen, again, couldn't generate consistent pressure rushing 4. And I don't even know what you want to consider consistent pressure being. Once every 4 dropbacks, once every 6 dropbacks. There were 2 sacks. I think Leonard Floyd had 1. Maybe he had both. I don't recall. And the Packers had 2 as well. But the front 4 is, I don't want to say a joke. That would be too harsh, but nothing that teams really need to worry about, right? They're blocking 5 on 4 all game, and those 4 aren't good enough to make the offense pay on a consistent basis. Picayune type of thing here. But Sorensen did not provide safety help at the end of the half when I believe it was Isaac Yiadom got beat by Christian Watson, and Christian Watson just does what Christian Watson does, and he just sucks, man. He just dropped the ball. Could have been another touchdown. Could have been up 24-10 at the half. Might have been a 45-10 final. But you can't leave Isaac Yiadom on a speedster one-on-one. I know they were maybe, and I think the Packers went 3 and out there. The Niners got the ball back and just knelt it. Even if they had given up a field goal there, it would have been 20-7, still a 2-score game, not the end of the world, but you can't give Green Bay a free shot like that. You can't give probably their fastest receiver a free run down the field with no safety help behind. Obviously the Niners got extremely lucky, but I didn't like what Sorensen dialed up there. And of course, the 14 points in the fourth quarter has been a season-long issue there. So they're still bottom 3 in the league in terms of fourth quarter defense. Points allowed defense, excuse me. All right. So that's at least this kind of game recap. The only good that came out of it, honestly, was George Kittle coming off of injury, had the touchdown, went over 80 yards, leading receiver, had a good game. George Kittle matters. I've been saying it for a month or two now. This offense has to run through, I said McCaffrey and Kittle. I'll stand by that, but put an asterisk, and then you got to read like the small copy footnote underneath that. But while using Mason to help the running game out, because it's not working. Pearsall again, completely absent for the game. Debo, was it 1 for 21 yards? Did he have more than one reception? I don't even recall. I should have the stats pulled up, but it was just so disgusting. I didn't want to look at it. We just know everything didn't work except Kittle. Kittle is very important to this team. Kittle is still playing at a high level. Kittle is going to get extended. Kittle's going to be with this team for 10 or more years. And anybody that's complaining about, and I've seen it on social before we get into the next segment, let's make it look official or sound official, that this team is old. And I'm going to define old as 30 or over. 30 or over is old. Who do they have? Trent Williams, who's going to be around for another couple of years, and Trent Williams getting a training camp in and getting it's going to matter as he gets older, 36 years old, right? That he's got to continue to just keep being in the best shape possible. He's a really large man, really athletic. He's been doing this for a long time, but him missing training camp, obviously not a good thing. It's not a reason why he got hurt and missed this game, but coming back at 37, you got to do everything you can to be in shape to remain, a top 3, top 5 tackle in this league. So 36 years old, Kittle's 31, Leonard Floyd's 32. And I think Jake Brendel might be, 30 or 31. And I don't have this on my notes, guys. I'm just kind of going through my head thinking about the D-line. I think Malik Collins is 30, linebacker Warner's 27, Bosa's 27, Jordan Elliott's 26. The other D tackles are younger than that. The entire secondary is young. Hufunga's Odom's 30, but he's a backup. Hufunga's going to be gone after this year. Charvarius Ward's going to be 29, I think. He's going to be gone after this year since they signed Demo. So the secondary is young. The rest of the O-line is young. Feliciano's going to be gone after this year. McCaffrey's only 27. Mason's young. Who knows? Maybe Eli Mitchell comes back because maybe Mason prices himself out. He's still mid-20s. Brock is young. The receiving core is young other than Chris Conley. So this narrative about the Niners having an old team, Javon Hargrave, I think, is 30, but he's going to be gone. In my opinion, he's going to be a post-June 1st cap cut to save the Niners $20 million. The narrative that the Niners are an old team, I think, again, is another one of those lazy ones, like anytime people jump on Brock or Kyle, because it's not true. They're not the youngest team in the league, but they're not old. I don't know what other benchmark we want to use other than 30, right? Because I think that's just a fair 30 years old, meaning you've been in the league for probably 8-ish years. A lot of wear on the tires, someone like a Kittle. But the Niners don't have that many players. They're going to get younger next year because of players that they're going to jettison. I think maybe Juice might be 30, 31, 32. If he goes, then the Niners have to figure out, Kyle likes to play with a fullback. You got to bring another fullback in, whether in the draft or in free agency. They're going to have another 8 or 9 picks. Hopefully they hit on half of those 4 or 5 players, along with the 7 or 8 that they have from this draft, 7. So it's another 11 young players, free agents that you bring in, hopefully on the younger end of the spectrum. The Niners are going to be a younger team next year than they are this year. They're going to lose some players, sure. But this is not the window's closed because they didn't win the Super Bowl last year and they're having a bad year this year. The window's closed for this year. Window's closed for this year. I don't think it's closed next year. I think they're bringing back too many star players. And let me just kind of we'll put a tie on that for now, because that'll be like the end thing that we're going to be talking about. But as you can see, a lot of things on my mind, even if I have notes or not. So rumblings, and by rumblings, I mean media speculation about Daniel Jones to the 49ers. Jones got cut by the Giants earlier on in the week. There's other teams I think make a whole lot more sense. People saying he wants to go to a playoff team, just I guess so he can sit and watch the team go to the playoffs, or potentially play if that team, makes a deep run. A team like, the Vikings makes sense. The Lions make sense. Seattle, who the hell's behind Geno Smith? I can't even, think right now, since Drew Lock went to the Giants. Hopefully it'll come to me. If not, no big deal. Kansas City's got Carson Wentz. Would someone like Baltimore consider it, since Daniel Jones can run? They can do read option stuff. Obviously not to the degree of Lamar Jackson. The Chargers. I think there's other teams that make sense beyond San Francisco. The only way it makes sense for San Francisco, or it makes sense in my brain, is if the Niners offer him a 2-year deal. If there's something about Jones that Kyle and John like, you just can't sign him for this year because it's a waste. And here's why it's a waste. By the time Daniel Jones is understanding this offense, the season will be literally over, or he'll be functional maybe week 16. He will not be ready to. It's not like if they sign him on Monday or Tuesday that he's going to play against the Bills this week, or against who do they have after that? The Rams or Bears the following week. He is not going to be ready. Yeah, he went to Duke. He's a smart guy. Doesn't matter. He's not going to be ready to play in this offense for at least 3 or 4 weeks. Remember, everybody, when the Niners traded for Jimmy Garoppolo in 2018, that was around Halloween. He only played the last 5 games of the season. He won all 5, but that was it, which means Jimmy sat for 4 or 5 games. Nobody's going to be coming in here, Daniel Jones or anybody else is going to be coming in here to save the Niners season. I've been doing the air quotes a lot today. I'm not sure why. But if they like him potentially for next year, they want to offer him a 2-year deal, fine. Then you got to cut somebody, and probably one of the quarterbacks. Who are you going to cut? But Daniel Jones is not an answer to, well, Brock's got a sore shoulder, so they need somebody. Yeah, the somebodies are the 2 quarterbacks in the building, Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs. And whether you love them or not, those are the quarterbacks the Niners are going to be rolling with the rest of the season. And if something's wrong with Brock's shoulder and he goes on IR, then Tanner Mordecai is going to get called up from the practice squad. End of story. Full stop. Daniel Jones very well may get signed by the Niners. If they do, it should be for beyond this year. And if I'm Daniel Jones or his agent, I wouldn't want that. I would want to maybe sign for this year for 1 year with the team, see what happens if a quarterback gets hurt and I can get some playing time. Someone threw out the Raiders. Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone, so he's done for the year. So if Jones wants to play sooner rather than later, then Las Vegas is probably his best avenue. But that's a garbage, go nowhere team. But it could at least maybe rekindle his value in the off season when this is a quarterback starved league. Maybe someone like Cleveland takes a flyer on him. They just sit Deshaun Watson forever, or just cut him and say, the hell with it. We're going to just eat the cap. There are going to be places he can go that he could be either maybe a bridge starter to a younger quarterback that a team drafts, or potentially gets playing time in a Cleveland type of situation, or a Minnesota situation if Darnold leaves in free agency. That's going to be one of the biggest, most fascinating things for me in free agency, is who's going to pay Sam Darnold off of one good year in Minnesota with a good offense and a good offensive-minded head coach. Who's going to fall for that pile of shit and give him money. There's people out here that don't want to pay Brock that are Niner fans. And Brock's played well since coming into the league, and they still don't think that's enough. But a team is there's going to be a moronic team out there that's going to overpay Sam Darnold for one good season in probably the best scenario he could be in Minnesota, plus the year before that, getting to sit and learn from Brock and Kyle Shanahan and a highly, highly efficient and explosive 49er offense. So to recap, Daniel Jones, probably not going to the Niners. Wherever he goes, he's not going to be functional for quite a while and would not be functional in San Francisco until week 16 at the earliest. And at that point, the season is over. So now for you West Coast folks, because I do not listen, radio station KNBR went off on a little bit of a rant earlier in the week where they basically posed the question, so what do you do if the Niners miss the playoffs? Like, what's the right answer here? Do you fire everybody? Do you cut? You fire the whole coaching staff, cut players? Do you blow up the stadium? Do you start war with Russia? Do you kill yourself in a gruesome manner? Like, this is what I'm saying about this Niner fans, and I guess Niner radio personalities in this case, being such spoiled little whiny bitches, earning the nickname 40 whiner fans because this season isn't going to plan for a lot of reasons. If Ayuk was in camp and got the contracts situated earlier, if same with Trent Williams, same with McCaffrey, if Greenlaw doesn't blow out his Achilles, other injuries, Hufanga stuff that they're dealing with, this season could have gone a little bit differently. If Kyle and this team won at least one game in the NFC West that they dropped, they'd be 6-4 and still now tied atop the NFC West. But this whole, what do you do if they miss the playoffs? Then you regroup and reload for next season. This loss, and it's not the fact that they lost by 28 and they got drubbed. Again, with who they were missing, this team did not have a chance. And they didn't help themselves to even keep the game competitive by not getting interceptions when they were possibly there, not stopping the run, not turning the ball over themselves, not committing stupid penalties. This game was a microcosm of the 49ers season. And at some point, right, this, you are who you've shown on tape for 10 weeks. This is the Niners. This is who the Niners are. This just happened to be who the Niners are, missing players at, if you want to say, the 5 most important positions on the field: quarterback, left tackle, defensive end, cornerback, and wide receiver 1, Ayuk, right? And even though Demo got the extension, Ward not playing is a hit, right? He's a very good cornerback. He's not going to be back next year, but that is a hit. Ask anybody in the league or people that know football. I don't know how you want to rank order them. Quarterback, left tackle, D end, wide receiver, and cornerback. In terms of all those, is obviously QB1, left tackle, right? Your number one players, those positions. You are not going to forget functioning. You're not going to survive in this league missing all that at once, plus other additional injuries at D tackle, at linebacker, at safety, for this team to overcome. But this loss and where the Niners stand at 5-6 has caused the dumb to become even dumber. There's still the don't pay Brock. There's the don't pay. I don't want to say still, but there's the don't pay Brock narrative. Those people have been saying it now. They've been saying it for a month, that they're just not convinced, that they're just a hater. They think quarterbacks grow on trees. Brock is a franchise quarterback. You're not an MVP finalist any year and not a franchise quarterback. Brock did not forget to play quarterback this year. That's been a lot that's been going against the offense. He is not a quarterback that needs everything perfect around him to function. We saw that was the case against the Rams, where he threw 3 touchdowns to Juwan Jennings, didn't have Debo, didn't have McCaffrey. He's played well and he hasn't had all of his pieces. that would hurt any quarterback. Ask Joe Burrow when he was missing either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. Ask Matthew Stafford when he was missing Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Jared Goff has had all of his players all season long. He's had a good season, but he threw 5 picks against the Texans. They won that game. Can you imagine Brock Purdy throws 5 picks? He threw, 3 or 4 against the Ravens, and they lost. But imagine if he throws 4 or 5 or 3 in a win, how much people would come down on him so hard. It's so amazing how Brock's a top 10 QB. People don't want to admit it, but he just is. They're worried about the contract. It's just a matter of, does he get paid top 1 to 5 or the bottom 6 to 10? And he should get paid the bottom 6 to 10. And I've been on record for, I don't know, my nose is pretty itchy. It's probably because I'm getting a little bit fired up, or as I've been saying online today, I am oppositional defiant to stupidity. And now I'm talking about stupidity. So things are flaring, itchy, whatever it may be. The thought process of, they'll just find somebody else. They've been looking since Steve Young, had a nice run with Garcia, had a nice run for a few years with Kaepernick, had a nice run with Jimmy. Brock's on a different level than those quarterbacks. He is. I'm not a Brock apologist or homer or anything like that. I don't own a Brock Purdy jersey. I don't own any jerseys of any players on this current team, or even, going back to like Frank Gore, that team. I have just an aversion. I can't wear a jersey of someone younger than me. I just can't. I think, I don't know. If it makes me a bad fan, whatever, I don't care. I'll wear a Young. I'll wear a Montana, a Rice, a Merton Hanks, a Deion Sanders. Christ, I had a J.J. Stokes jersey, Jeff Garcia jersey at one point. I'd rather go old school than new school. That's just me. If you guys don't do that, that's okay. I'm not throwing stones. But the don't pay Brock narrative was loud or was medium. Now it's loud. And it's loud because people are stupid and emotional and not critically thinking about things, or have never negotiated their salary, or don't know how market works, or supply and demand, or whatever it may be. Brock shouldn't get paid 60 plus, but I could see him in the low to mid 50s. If he makes $52, $54 million a year, I wouldn't bat an eye. Because again, if I'm Brock's agent and you're seeing Jordan Love, who's proven nothing in this league, Trevor Lawrence, who's proven nothing in this league, Tua, who is an injury risk just waiting to happen, that are making in the $53 to $55 million range. If you don't think Brock is in that class of quarterback, then you need another set of eyes to start watching the games. Don't get dazzled by physical attributes. Physical attributes and 50 cents buys you a child-sized bag of chips. And the same thing with Kyle. Kyle's seat is not hot. Kyle's seat is cold. I said it last week. If you sit on Kyle's seat, you're going to get frostbite on your ass. Kyle's not going anywhere. He is signed through 2027. Kyle is not worn out his welcome. He has not lost the locker room. The football has not passed him by. He doesn't need to innovate. I think he needs to get out of his own way and start playing players like a Jordan Mason, who are playing better than the supposed high-paid stars in front of them. Again, Jordan Mason playing this game would not have changed the outcome. Would not have. And I'm not saying you start Jordan and you sit Christian. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying Mason deserves 5 to 10 carries a game. He does. You can't go from top 2 or 3 in the league in rushing to non-existent. The way the running game has looked the past 3 games. You can't convince me of that. I don't think you can convince any of us of that, right? This team does need to retool in the offseason. I mentioned a little bit earlier, just in terms of who's going, Ward, Hufanga, Hargrave, probably Greenlaw. They got to hit on their draft picks again. Got to bring in some good bargain basement free agents. Is someone like a Juice gone? They need a viable tight end too. They're going to need a left guard because Aaron Banks is going to cost too much money. They don't, other than Trent Williams, they do not spend money on the line. It's a retooling. This isn't a blow it up situation. 5-6 is not great. And if they just won one of those 3 NFC West games, I keep saying it, they're 6-4 and tied, at least wins and loss wise, for the top of the NFC West. They'd still be behind Seattle and Arizona due to tiebreakers. But guys, when the dust settles, and I don't know when you're listening to this, if you're listening to this on Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or at any point, if you listen to this at all or watch this, I greatly appreciate it. But no matter what happens to the Rams tonight, I'm not watching the Rams game. No matter what happens, the Niners are still one game out of the division. Arizona has to play Seattle again in 2 weeks. Arizona has to play the Rams again. Seattle has to play the Rams again. The Niners have to play Arizona and the Rams again. Arizona does have an easy schedule, but did anyone see the Panthers taking the Chiefs down to the wires? Did anyone see Tennessee beating Houston? Did anyone see Dallas beating Washington? Crazy stuff happens. And the Niners aren't going to be favored at Buffalo, and they'll probably drop that game to go to 5-7. But the next 2 games are very winnable. Chicago and Caleb Williams, who looks absolutely lost at home, and the Rams. And that's a winnable game as well. 7-7, and they win the last 3 to maybe get into the playoffs at 10-7. It's possible. I wouldn't bet on it, and I'm going to bet against them. I'm going to bet against them this week coming up against the Bills. Because again, I'm a realist. I'm not a homer. Doesn't make me a bad fan if I'm trying to make some money on my team struggling this year, right? One, it's just the ultimate hedge. That if the Niners win, I'm happy. And if they lose, I'm happy because I'm making money. Again, not a ton of money, but I get a little something out of it. I'm a realist. Even with that scenario that I said, if they were 5-7, they win the next 2 to go to 7-7 and win the next 3, basically 5 in a row to get to 10-7 and maybe seek in the playoffs. I know this team's not going anywhere. I'm a realist. But all I'm telling you is they're in it until they're not. Even there's so many people doom and gloom, whiny bitches out there on social media. And even like the national media folks, I mean, forget, I can only imagine what, KNBR radio hosts in the Bay Area or people calling in. It's therapy sessions, Lexapro, Prozac, Paxil, all around for everybody. But they're technically in it until they're not. It feels like shit right now. But I think what I put on on the post, the social post that accompanies the link to this podcast is, with the 4 players out, Brandon Allen starting and Nick Sorensen running the defense, what did you think was going to happen today? Realist. And maybe that doesn't give us a whole lot of confidence going into Buffalo, but Chicago, Miami, the Rams, I'm not going to say confident, but you could see them dropping any one of those games. You could see them winning any one of those games either. Detroit, tough. Arizona, completely laid an egg in Seattle. Could not score an offensive touchdown. That's why Arizona, Seattle, not as good as advertised. Same with the Rams. The NFC West is messy, and the Niners can make it interesting if they get their shit together. And next week, the Niners are at Buffalo. Arizona's in Minnesota. So if the Niners lose and go to 5-7, Arizona could be 6-6. Seattle's at the Jets. Now, they probably should beat the Jets, but if the Jets actually decide to play some defense, Seattle could lose that game. The Rams have the easiest game at New Orleans. But should they drop the game to Philadelphia? And by the time you're listening to this, you'll know if they have won or lost or not. I do not know. I haven't checked. The Niners could lose at Buffalo, be 5-7, and still be a game out. That's not where you want to be. It's obviously not where you want to be, and it instills no confidence that anything's going to change. And they dug this hole themselves. The Chiefs loss, the Packers loss, and the Viking loss were all legit losses. The other 3, again, just get one. I mean, they should have won all 3 of those games. They should have. But if you want to be conservative, 2. If you want to be super conservative, just get 1. And things just feel different at 6-5 or 6-6 coming out of Buffalo with a chance to go 8-6 the next 2 games at home. But if you want to talk any sort of silver lining, and if we're reaching here, if things continue to go to shit, then Brian Schneider is definitely gone in the offseason. And I think so is Nick Sorensen. I don't think you can waste another season on a defensive coordinator that has shown no creativity. When he's dialed up blitzes minimally, it hasn't been blitzes that are getting home or freeing up rushers or disguising anything. I think Schneider would be Schneider and Sorensen would be gone. You just can't hire anyone from the staff. You just can't hire anyone on the staff. Or if you do, this person has to have their own mind to be like, you know what? We're coming after you. Kyle, we're going to play cover 3, but this shit it didn't work at all last year. And if they're going to be missing a couple other pieces, a Hargrave, a Ward, a Greenlow, Hufanga, not to say they're going to be a worse team, but maybe you supplement that with a little aggressiveness. And if things continue to go to shit, then this 49er team, who's still going to have stars, Pro Bowlers or all pro players at left tackle, quarterback, running back, tight end, receiver, defensive end, linebacker, and if you want to say a corner in Demo, and a good safety tandem in Jair and Malik Mustafa, whatever that 9 means for you, they're still going to have a lot of talented players at very important positions. They'd be coming off of a down year in which they would get a 3rd or 4th place schedule. Easier schedule than this year. Hit on half your draft class. Hit on half of your free agents. Make some smart re-signings. And again, they have $48 million in cap space in 2025. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm not trying to make you feel better regarding anything here. But a down year after, yes, 3 straight years of, NFC Championship game or Super Bowl, it sucks. We all want to watch more 49er football than less, but there's the real possibility that there's 6 games left in this season, that there's no playoff football. But if Brock Purdy's out for an extended period of time and the losses keep piling up, it sucks. But that means that there's going to be changes to the coaching staff and beyond. And again, I'll take a 3rd or 4th place schedule. I don't care. Right now, the season doesn't look like it's going anywhere anyway. They're not going to be tanking for a quarterback, folks, but they'll get higher draft picks in every round, right? And it'll make next season maybe not as much of a bear as this season, but we still have 6 games to go. That concludes the podcast. That concludes the podcast for this week. Like always, I want to thank you sincerely for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening routine. Hopefully I'm going to go upstairs now. I'm in my basement, recording. Hopefully the Eagles defeated the Rams, because every NFC West loss and NFC loss for NFC West foes helps the Niners out. That would be big. And if not, if the Rams did pull it out again, they're still 1 game back in the loss column of everybody with 6 to go. It's not over. They're in it until they're not, right? But there's a lot of work to do. We'll next talk on either Thursday or Friday, hopefully Thursday, discussing anything going on in Ninerland. Brock's shoulder, Bosa's oblique, Trent Williams' ankle and knee, Charvarius Ward, who I think was more of like a just not in game shape type of thing, because he was a limited participant in practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I don't think it was by Friday, it was anything still emotional, although I certainly can't speak for him. I don't think he was probably ready to play in a game. I will envision him, unless he was actually got injured in practice, but I envision him playing. If the Niners can get everybody back against Buffalo, they could make it interesting. If they get everybody back but Brock, I don't think it's going to be too interesting at all. But still have a full week to think about that, digest, discuss, and see what the rest of the NFC and NFC West looks like going into next weekend. But until we talk again, stay happy, healthy, and safe, and we will talk soon. Take care, everyone.